Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Creation show. I'm your host and coach, Rebecca Boswell. We did have a different plan for today, so I am sort of co-host. I'm going to be the face of the host today. Frank Fradella is actually our guest host, and sometimes the plan is not always the plan that shows up. So we are experiencing some difficulties in getting him into the live. So he is in the comments, and so he is going to be asking me questions from the comments, and maybe at some point, if we all contribute, what would it take for me to actually be able to bring him on live as well? So yes, the Art of Creation show. This is where we look at how choice creates, and different possibilities for creating a life and a living that can actually work for you, whatever that is. Usually we have guests that I interview, and this is the season finale of season 5. And we thought we would, yes, that's right, Mercury retrograde. Hold on to your hats, people. We can even choose now. So we are flipping the script a little bit today, and the plan was to have Frank Fradella, our guest host, interview me on the screen with me, and I be the special guest. So today it's Getting Thank You, season 5. I know, it's pretty exciting. So today it's the topic is getting personal with Rebecca Boswell, and part of that is that I've had a lot of people asking me, how come you don't really do more of these shows on your own? And what do you think about this? And, we want to know about, not even just about the coaching and about what you're doing and what's next for you, and about your family, about your background, about, things we don't know about you. And so I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And how interesting that it never even occurred to me that people might be interested in knowing more about the host, and not just always about the guests. So that's what today is about. So I welcome all of your questions, and really, this is free form. So whatever you would like to pop into the comments and we can chat about. And so I'd also love to get a sense too about the show and the format. Would you like to see longer shows or shorter shows? If they're shorter, what, like 15, 20 minutes? How long? Are you interested in having more episodes that are specifically me on a topic without having guests every week? What about a bi-weekly format? All kinds of different things. Any specific guests that you would love to see on the show or recommend, in the show notes there will be a link to the season 6 Google Doc for those who want to apply to be a guest, and so you can find that in the show notes once this posts to YouTube. So Frank has now offered his first question. Let me introduce briefly our host, Frank Fradella. He is also a coach. He lives in Italy, and he basically has been on the adventure of a lifetime. He has a wife and 3 beautiful boys, and they basically uprooted and have been on a wild ride adventure living in Ireland and Italy, and he's a photographer, filmmaker, artist, and coach. Currently he is launching and putting on his global Geek's Guide to Consciousness tour, Geek's Guide to Empowerment tour, and bringing all kinds of really cool and fun tools around the globe for people who are looking to have fun and find a little bit more of what they have to offer and to have the courage to bring it out into the world. So, a topic near and dear to my heart, of course. So now he asks, tell us about living on the side of a volcano and swimming with dolphins. Yes. Okay. So that's a great question. So yeah. Okay. This is actually one of my, it's funny. I've hinted at this in a couple different episodes and never told the story. So thanks for asking. Before kids, after I was already married, this was in the, let's say like 2005, I believe. I was living in Hawaii. I lived in Hawaii for about 3.5 years. And for the last 3 months of living in Hawaii, I lived on the Big Island of Hawaii. And so for the most of our time there, I lived on Oahu in Honolulu by Pearl Harbor. And then my last 3 months, I lived at a yoga retreat center called the Yoga Oasis in the middle of the jungle in Puna, on the Hilo side, or the jungle rainforest side of the Big Island. And yeah, that's where the volcano is. So when you would look up in the sky at night, yeah, the sky was red, because, you know, glowing molten rock does that to the night sky. And you could hear it. You could kind of hear the volcano. There was always this sort of like sound, and it was different than the waves because you could hear that too. We were pretty close to the well, there's not really a lot of beach, but just like where it cliffs into the ocean, so close to the ocean. And so for the first month, I had a really cushy place with a bed and, you know, my own little desk, and it was, you know, very nice. And then they offered for me, I was there for a work study program. And so they invited me to stay longer. And yeah, oh, cool. Oh, I would love to hear from Elena. And so, yeah, so they said, we'd love to have you stay, but we don't have any room for you. But we have this tent that if you want it, you could just, you know, use it out in the field. And so they had a couple sort of primitive, well, I used it as a tent platform. And so, yeah, so for 2 months, I had a tent pitched out there with a little makeshift pallet bed with all the bedding I could find. And yeah, so that was how I was living. So 3 hours of yoga in the morning. We had Christina, who was the most amazing chef, and it was all vegan and like fresh local food, amazing. And on Sundays, when we were finished with all of our chores, we would go to ecstatic dance, which was amazing. I had Amy Shine on a couple weeks ago, and she talked a lot about her experience with ecstatic dance. And so there was this resort where we would go on Sundays, and for a couple hours they would have this ecstatic dance with hundreds of people. And so we would go there, and it was just this amazing vibe of like a rave, but everyone is sober and it's the middle of the day and you're in the jungle and there's just this like vibrant energy. And so anyway, after that we'd go to the black sand beach, which is you have to like climb down the cliff to get there, and all the sand is black, and there are these like killer waves, so like the break, because it goes from being like super deep water all the way to this little beach, and so the waves are just like smash. And so it took a while to even have the courage to get out there, and the water was just black because the sand underneath was black, and it was super deep. And you know, sharks are a thing in my world. So yeah, what would it take to change that? And so it took a lot of courage over time to be able to go out there. And so one day, every day I would go, and when we would go to the beach, and I just missed the dolphins. And this one day we went, and I was out there with 2 other friends, and all of a sudden there was this big like whoosh underneath my feet, and it was cold. All of a sudden you could just feel like the energy coming up, and it was super cold. And I had this moment of panic, like I know something very different is happening. This is not a usual occurrence. And that uncertainty, and that like, oh my gosh, is this the moment where I finally meet Jaws? And all of a sudden, this pod of spinner dolphins just pops out of the water, maybe like, I don't know, 20 feet away from me and my 2 friends. And they're just playing and jumping and dancing around in the water. And then there was this baby, and the baby was coming, and it kept swimming around, and it was, I couldn't touch it. So it wasn't that close, but I could almost touch it, and it was just right there, and it like came up, and it was smiling, Anyway, I have the sense that there was an energetic upgrade on that day, and man, that feeling of gratitude that just waved through my body, and that gift of being able to spend those moments with these amazing, playful, joyful animals. So, that was an amazing experience, and it was one of those turning points in my life where I realized, oh my gosh, look, all of that was possible, and I didn't even know that I had the capacity to experience that with my body, or the capacity for me to feel that, and to also be so connected to all of these things, and in this environment that I was actually had a lot of fear in, and so to have that peace that I don't know that I'd ever really felt or acknowledged before. So anyway, that really, really, like I said, it was a bit of an upgrade, energetic, and then also so massively energetic that, I think, the story of the Grinch, and at the end they says, and his heart grew, 7 sizes that day, or however many sizes. Well, I feel like on that day, my brain grew. And when I say my brain, I just mean like, we function so much from this space of our brain in this world, and forget that there's so much more capacity beyond just that electrical system. And, there's all the brain that we don't even really know how to use it. It's like having a Ferrari and only going 3 miles per hour, because we don't know yet how to drive it any faster without crashing it into a wall. But it was like that day, that space of my mental being also expanded so much more, and giving me that glimpse and that insight on how much more space and how much more expanded we can be when we tap into that greater space and our being space, not just our thinking body space. Oh, cool. Wow, Stephanie, a lot of people who have experienced ecstatic dance. That's really cool. I'm in Austin, Texas now, and it's something that keeps pinging on my radar to go explore again and see what kind of community there is. Just to move and groove and find more of that connected space and energy. Frank, there still is no add button for you. I know. I would love to have you on too. I know. The request button is still activated though. So I wonder if that will show up for you. Cool. And I'm wondering about you guys, like, have any of you had any experiences like that where, sort of these pivotal moments where it's like, wow, that was a point in my life where something changed, something occurred, there was this piece that was not the same afterwards. 'Cause if you did, I'd love to hear about it and see it in the comments as well. All right, Frank, what else have you got for me? Yeah, I know, it doesn't look like I can get you yet. I can add Rachel, I can add Martha, I can add a bunch of you, but just not Frank. How does it get any better than that? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so being a multimodality coach, and that sounds really, I love the alliteration. I'm always such a fan for alliteration. So multimodality coach, it's funny. I mean, so one of the things that I like to say is same moon, different telescope, and what that means to me is that Oh, okay. So, Frank, I don't know if you see that, but Rachel just said that her ad button has come and gone. So if you keep an eye out, maybe it will pop up for you. But I'm not sure because Rachel, for some reason, yours, I see it every time I go. It looks like, you want to be on the show? Maybe the universe is telling us something. So I don't really look at it as multimodality, honestly. To me, it's very segmented. And the way that I look at things is, how much can I be aware of? How much information can I integrate? How much can I connect to whatever is greater? And how many tools can I have at my disposal? So that when I get these multidimensional beings coming and speaking with me, whether it's about health or about relationships or about career, about business building, or about finding more peace in their life, or about, having the courage to choose something new, whatever it is, we are all diamonds, I struggled personally for so many years with all of my interests, right? Like, how could I do this and that? And how does all, this whole jack of all trades, master of none, how does that all fit together? And I realized, a diamond shines its brightest when it has many facets. And coincidentally, that's my birthstone diamond, see? So I wonder how much about this I've known since day one on this planet. But the more facets we have, the more brightly we can shine, right? It takes a little polishing sometimes, right? We have all these facets, and those that we polish, those that we nurture, those that we attend to, those that we foster, they get the attention, they build energy, they have the light that shines the brightest. And, if we're polishing all of them, yeah, that can be a lot of different things. And yet at the same time, what if it's all of those things? It's precisely all those different facets that make you the unique gift, right? No two diamonds are the same, just as no two snowflakes, just as no two beings. And so where can we find those common bridges, those commonalities, those places where we can contribute to each other while at the same time being aware of our difference and being aware of the things that make us unique and bringing that out with our voice into the world. And so, if someone comes and they really want to just plow through a to-do list, man, I'm your girl. I'll help you with that. But if you're coming and you're like, man, there's this thing, we'll talk about it, right? And sometimes that can create a change. And then sometimes there's something else. And so then that's where, if the person that I'm playing with and in a coaching engagement with, if they are into the possibility of working from an energetic point of view or from an energetic place where they're willing to drop barriers, willing to expand out, willing to start perceiving more than meets the eye, then I love to go there too. And there's so many different tools from, when I lived in Hawaii and I did quite a lot of study in Ho'oponopono and Lomi Lomi and working with the Ha, the breath. It's so beautiful. Hi Manjit, how are you? And so, pulling all of these different things, I know a lot of the guests that we've had in the past are practitioners of Access Consciousness. I've been a facilitator of that and practicing with a lot of those tools for the last over 6 years. And so, for people who are interested in some of those specific tools, yes, those are in my toolbox. And, what would it take for us to be able to choose from everything and be able to paint with the entire paint box without judgment and with this ever-evolving invitation for awareness and then the capacity to take inspired action from there. So multi-modality coach, yes. But really the way I look at it is, hey, this art of creation, there's an infinite number of colors that we can choose from, and an infinite number of paintbrushes and palettes and canvases and media and things that you can create. So yeah, I'm going to pull from everything. And as a learner of the world and beyond, I will continue to voraciously pull in whatever I can and whatever shows up that I know can be a contribution or create greater. So Frank is now asking, he says, I love your ability to speak the language of the person you're coaching, to tap into the energy and facilitate from there. So thank you so much for that acknowledgement, Frank. And, for me, it's, it's one of those things that is really a practice too, right? For me as a person, right, on the planet, it's something that I'm constantly looking at for myself, right? Like where can I share experiences with people in a way that creates greater, not that I'm muscling it to be greater, but just like where I can be willing to be a space that facilitates greater for those who are also choosing that. And language is so interesting. I love words. Obviously, I use a lot of them. And if we get too persnickety with them, it can be a little interesting. And at the same time, if we get too loose with them, it can also get interesting. And what I mean by that, there's no right or wrong here, but what I'm inviting is just this awareness around language and what can people receive. So, when you're talking to someone, having energetic conversations with everybody, that doesn't always create greater. Using certain language with certain people, it doesn't create a sense of fit or belonging. And, ultimately, we are pack animals on this planet. And there is this thing of do I fit with this person? And we're not going to fit with everyone. I mean, we know that. And for the places where there is a possibility for contributing, then, finding a mutual language is going to open those doors for whatever can get created. And just be aware too of this possibility for words to have energy. I mean, any word at best is really just a signpost. So if we ever get super attached to a word, you might ask yourself, okay, so what is it about that word? And what is the energy that I'm aware of with that word? And what does that actually mean for me? And what am I creating with that or not creating with that? But words are just signposts. They just kind of give you a vague and general idea of something so big, right? I always joke about the Aladdin quote, right? All the power of the universe, itty bitty little living space, right? When the genie has to go into his bottle. And that's kind of how I look at words, right? It's like you have all of these energies, all of these things that are all kind of condensed down into this one little word, which can in a lot of ways convey all those energies, but can also be like the sign that, is pointing to Rome, but the wind blows and suddenly it's pointing this way and the sign is pointing that way, but Rome is still actually over here. So just being aware when the words that are being used, when there's actually a disconnect to the energy behind them, or getting what is the actual energy behind them, right? Like some of the words we talk about sometimes are like these words of want or need, right? And it's like, oh, we'd like to use them as creative words, right? For creating like, I want more money, or I need a new job, right? And it's like, oh, okay, but there actually is a really interesting energy to those words that doesn't necessarily contribute to the creation of this thing that could actually have a very different pull and energy if you were aware of them. Sometimes things like want and need, the energy there, the more dominant energy, is a lack energy, okay? And so when we can start to become aware of that and begin to shift even just the words that we're using and the energies that we're playing with through those words, then what can that create, and what can you then open yourself up to that you hadn't been open to before? So, okay, cool. So the next question Frank is asking is if there's a why for me, as in, why did I choose to become a coach? And yeah, absolutely. It's kind of what are the words? We're just talking about words. It's an integral piece of just who I am, and what I get. I'm here to be in the world. I've known and had a sense of this energy my whole life. I've always known that I've been able to perceive a particular energy in my future. And the parts that I've known is that it has to do with people. It has to do with creating a different possibility on the planet. It has to do with our minds and everything that's greater. So all of the power and the capacity of these mega computers that we have, and then also all of the capacity that we have to connect into the motherboard that is actually not just a part of our console, but something greater, right? Always been curious about that connection. And when I was living in Hawaii, I was working at a destination management company and coordinating events for incentive trips. So like if Verizon, someone sold a certain number of things, they'd get the trip, right? And then we would put together that wonderful experience. And I was sitting there one day looking out the window at Hawaii and then looking in at my cubicle, and I was like, I am dying at a very rapid rate. I'm like, we're all dying at some point, hopefully it will be hundreds of years from now when I say goodbye to this lifetime. But at some point, I may transfer on to the next adventure. But I was like, the rate at which I am heading towards that is way too fast. I want to be out in that. Like, I live in Hawaii. I want to, that's where I have to be. And so I actually left that job for a 6-month intensive massage therapy training program over on the other side of the island in Kailua, Kona. And beautiful place. I'm going to be there in a week. I can't wait. And so went through this whole program, and we went through all kinds of different things with the physical body, mechanics, cellular knowledge, energetics, different modalities within the realm of energetics, all kinds of work with fascia. That was one of my favorite areas to play with of the body. And so I just dove in. I was invited to teach at the school, and I was working out of their clinic and a few other things, and it was just this beautiful experience. And these sessions that I would have with people, they really opened up this space even further that I had not really been aware of yet. And I wonder how much that actually opened me up to be able to have that dolphin experience at the end of that Hawaii adventure. But one of the things that I really noticed was that we would have these amazing experiences together, myself and whoever was there on the table. And sometimes, kind of psychic awareness, energetic things would show up and change. It was amazing. And other times it was just change in the physical body. But then they would go out into their life and they would do everything the way they had done it the previous week. And then they'd come back and things were not changing kind of over time. It was like they would change, there'd be relief for a few days, and then they'd go back to all of the other things, and it would just keep this cycle. It was great for my business. They kept coming back. But I knew that there was something else. And one of the things that was missing was this dialoguing piece, right? I told you I love language. But it is one of these ways as humans that we can start to engage with each other around energy on a different level. And obviously with the body and the practice, but then also, bringing the brain into the conversation so that it can kind of relax a little bit. Lots of times our brain can really be a block to opening up to greater expansion and possibility and what is available on an energetic level. And so that scope of practice was too small. And so when we moved back east from Hawaii, I was looking into counseling programs, I was looking into PhD programs, and everything that I was looking at was all pathology based. It was all like, okay, how can we fix you? You are broken. Oh, you have this diagnosis. Oh, there's something wrong. We have to trace it back, find where it all went wrong, fix it, and then you can move forward. And it just didn't sit well with me. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. It's so counterintuitive. And so the more I started looking into positive psychology, this was back in 2000. I was acting again. So one of the many things that Rebecca has done. I was actually a professional actress at a children's theater for several years. And meanwhile, also knowing that there was this piece tugging at me. And so I was looking into positive psychology a lot. And at that point, Harvard had their elective course, but there wasn't really, it was just still very pop psychology, and there were not really a lot of programs or possibilities around it. And the more that I looked into it, the more that I found coaching and this idea that, you have what you require, right? There might be missing information, right? There may be some missing skills. There may be things that you can add, but like fundamentally, like everything that you've been, everything you've done, everything you are right now, is enough to create whatever it is that you want to create moving forward. And, it was about questions, right? Don't assume about this person. They will know, and you can facilitate that process. And so I went through the executive leadership coaching program through Columbia University in New York. And it was amazing. Loved it. Changed, again, so much, opening so many doors, just by using questions, by listening more to what people were saying, hearing, okay, what are their words? What's underneath that? What's behind that? What else is there? And that was in 2008 that I started the process. And then my coaching practice started to evolve, and then Access Consciousness actually stepped in 2011, I believe it was, where I just kept getting this thing of like the bodies, right? Like here I was working with bodies and energetically with them and physically with them in Hawaii. And then now I was working with people, and it was all speaking and brains, but there was this piece missing. I kept hearing bodies, like bring those back in, bring the beings, like there's something else. Where is that? And so then, enter Access Consciousness, giving me a lot of really amazing tools and just personal space that I am forever grateful for, and that have really contributed and continue to contribute every day that I use them. And a lot of the tools, back episodes, you get a lot of those from a lot of the amazing guests that we've had in previous episodes. And so that was really that thing of diving more just into the energetics and using some really wacky and fun tools for that. And now it's like there's this thing of like, okay, great. And now I'm in this place of really integrating and really being all of that together. which is a really exciting space to be in. So thank you so much for that question. And the why is, why not? if you know that something else is greater, that something else greater is available for you, and you just aren't sure how to go about even beginning to unpack that, exactly what is it? What are my next steps? How do I approach this? Right? It's nice to have somebody there on your side and in your corner, asking questions and holding the mirror, reflecting back what it is that shining that flashlight into the dark corners and into the areas and shadows where the fear is, where the doubt is, where you don't really want to look, but where actually, when you can embrace it, when you can move through it, when you can shift and change it, gives you so much power in your life, in your community, and out in the world. So, I truly believe we are better together. I believe we can have more fun together, and I believe that we are better together, and so that's that is my place in the world, is assisting people in being greater in every moment, whatever that is, and it the funny thing is we talk about our best self, right? And my best today may not be my best that I've ever been. And that's okay too. So I think the big key here is how often, how often, tell me, 1 to 10 times, 10 to 20 times, 0 times, how often in your day do you get to be in a space of judgment-free awareness? How many people do you have in your life where you can have a conversation and that nothing from that conversation is going to go anywhere outside of that conversation unless you bring it there? How many times do we have conversations where we can actually explore things that we're not sure about, right? Where we don't have to have it all figured out and have all the answers and present, but where we can actually unpack this messy ball, right? And if there are emotions there, okay, cool. What is that, right? If there's anger, if there's doubt, if there's sadness, if there's fear, where do you have that space in your life? And who is there where you can actually have conversations where, you might noodle around in that for a little bit, but you come through it with a sense of how that can actually be a gift for propelling you forward and still creating. So instead of being the anchor around your ankle that's pulling you down, that it can actually turn into a lightness that lifts you up, right? And it's not about, I have to do this to be better, or I have to, have this to be worthwhile, or I have to prove my value. For me, that's not greater, that's not better. That's judgment. Yeah. So for me, greater, better, stronger is about ever changing, ever evolving, finding what is it for me to drop those barriers? What is it for me to be willing to receive from the people, the places, the things, the energies, the world around me? And what can I choose to be a contribution back? Not out of obligation, not because it makes me look good, not because I have to, not because somebody else did, but because that is actually me giving the gift of me in the world. And that matters. So if I can contribute to any of that with anyone, then I will have led a fulfilled and successful life. So that is my why, Frank. So I wonder what else, and how are we doing on time? Yeah, we're just getting probably to the end of the hour. So I'm wondering if there are any other questions for me, or about anything that I shared, or about where we're moving forward with the show. Is there anything else? Cool. I just want to make sure you're still there. Awesome. So if there is anything else, please do pop those in the comments. And we are going to be on a break. So after this episode, we will have a break, no new episodes until May. So that'll be fun, and can't wait to have you guys back for those episodes for May and June before the summer hiatus. But I do want to invite you to a couple things. So the month of April, that's my birthday month. It's the month of the diamond. So, right, let's polish off some of those facets together. I have a group that I have been doing a 30-day gratitude challenge for the last several years on every November. And I got the hit that this April, we're going to do a 30-day exploration together, and it's going to be around the topic of peace. So creating peace in your world. What is that? What does peace mean to you? Where do you perceive it? What do you know about it? What kinds of things do you incorporate into your day and into your life and living to foster and nurture and cultivate it? So I will put the link in the show notes to that group. So I would love, through the rest of March, I would love for you to go and ask to be added to that group if you'd like to participate. Would love to have you in this exploration of peace and having more peace in our world. And what if truly being the change within ourselves was the ripple that could create more change and more peace in the world. So that's something I'd like to invite you to. That's a free adventure. So please come and join us. And then also there's something I'm really excited about that I will have a link also in the show notes for you guys, but it's officially being announced on Monday for everyone else in the world. 5 conversations. So conversations for creating your future. So I'm offering 5 conversations that you can choose as individual conversations, or you can choose all 5 or a few of them. And so they're either one-off or a series of 5, and each one has a specific theme with specific questions that we're going to explore together. So I will put those also in the show notes so you can take a look and see. And if you sign up for any of them before they get announced on Monday, you'll get a little thank you discount. So how's it get any better than that? I'm really looking forward to those conversations, and I can't wait to see who chooses them. I hope it will be you. What would it take? All right, everybody. So that is it for today. There is also going to be a link to the season 6 for the Art of Creation show. So if you or someone you know would like to be a guest, please share the link with them so that they can register and apply to be on the show either that season or a season in the future. So that is it. Thank you so much, all of you who showed up today. Thank you for participating, and maybe you know a little something more about me today than you did yesterday, and I look forward to getting to know more about you in the future. So thank you guys for being here. Please subscribe, like, click all the bells, the notifications, do the stuff, and that way we can play again in the future. Thanks so much for showing up. Until next season, I wonder what we'll discover next. Bye-bye, everybody.